to this very hot Somerset North Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Kathy Pearce, Chair of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Matt Martin, who is the Vice Chair. I'll just go through some housekeeping things first. Fire drill, we're not expecting a drill, so if the alarm goes off, it's a real thing. Please make your way out of the double doors into reception and then into King Square. There are also toilets in the reception should you need them, and there is water on the table to your right. We're just getting some more glasses, but please do feel free to help yourself if you need some water. So this meeting is a hybrid meeting, and that means that committee members are present here in Bridgewater House and that the meeting is also available online via our team. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. Can I remind all of those in the room to turn your mobile phones off or to silent? And can those joining us online please turn your cameras and microphones off so that the meeting is not disturbed? I'll now introduce those taking part in the committee today. To my left are officers from our legal and democratic team, and to my right are the planning officers who will present the applications. And on the wings of the table are the councillors who will debate and decide applications. The format is as the published agenda, and a copy of the officer report can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation. Councillors around the table will then debate and decide on each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal. Only members who have been present throughout the whole application will be able to vote. And the voting options are for, against, abstain and defer. Votes will be counted and the results announced. So that takes us into the main agenda. We start off with agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. And we do have a few today. Lee, would you like to take us through those, please?
Oh, yeah, thank you. We received apologies from Councillor Jill Slocum, Councillor Alan and Councillor Haley Bruce, and we also have 2 subs in place of Councillor Slocum and Councillor Bradford, being Councillor Well and Councillor Duddridge.
Can I just say at this point, we welcome Councillors Well and Duddridge, but just to be mindful of the fact that for agenda item 6, which is the application for 19 Oxford Street, Burnham-on-Sea, because this is a deferral and therefore you will not have listened to the entire debate or the debate that took place last month, you'll be able to stay at the table, but you won't be able to vote, I'm afraid. Okay, thank you. So that takes us to the agenda item 2, which is minutes of the previous meeting. I did notice one thing on them. On page 15 of the report online, there was mention of Cheddar, and I think that should be Cheddar. So that, but bearing that in mind, are there any other? In that case, can I have a show of approval for accepting those minutes, please? Yeah, and that's unanimous for all that were at the meeting. We now go on to agenda item 3, which is declarations of interest. And can I ask our legal officer just to go through why we need to make declarations of interest, just for clarity? Thank you.
Thank you. The point is that this committee sits in a quasi-judicial function, therefore must comply rules of fairness and natural justice. This means that each decision must be made by all members with an open mind, and they should not be influenced by any extraneous influence. There are 2 concepts, effectively predetermination and predisposition. The predetermination issue is that if a member has a pecuniary interest that can be either financial, contract, by means of employment, property or sponsorship, he or she must declare that interest and not participate in the debate, cannot vote on the issue under debate, and must leave the council chamber while that matter is being considered. There is another level of interest that's predisposition. That's where there's no financial or direct interest, but where the person has other public functions, a membership, for instance, of another authority such as a parish council, they can still remain vote because that is not a personal declarable interest. So that's sort of broad distinction that one has to bear in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So bearing that in mind, can I have any declarations of interest, please? So first, and then Councillor Ferguson and Hal and Murphy.
Okay, so declaration in terms of I'm a member of the Axe Brew Drainage Board, and obviously they're consulted on the application. So I've not taken part in their discussions and come to that with an open mind. The application on agenda item 8, page 95 is in my division. I'm also a parish councillor in Brentnall. I didn't vote on the application, so I will come to this with a debate and make a decision today.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, on item 8, this application is in my division, but I've taken no part in any discussions on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Axe Brew Drainage Board haven't spoken to anybody with any application. And just in case you're unaware, this first application is sent today. And the chairman for Burnside Private Planning Committee, they've already voted on this and I voted in favour, so I should leave the room.
Yes. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. May I declare an interest in agenda item number 7, insofar as it's in my division, but I've taken part in no discussions concerning the application, so I come with a clear and open mind, as they say.
Councillor Ham.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, agenda item 7, I am predisposed, I am registered to speak. So I will give a quick introduction and then we'll leave the room.
Yes, and then when the debate is taking place, yeah, you'll need to leave the room.
I'll just say,
Thank you. You did say. Sorry. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a mere formality, I am the ward member for item 6, the Burnham seat, which is a deferral, so maybe no need to make it, but I've had no other discussions in other places.
Okay, thank you very much, members. We've gone to agenda item 4, which is public question time. There are a number of people who've registered to speak, and I'll call you to the table when we are discussing that application. So that brings us on to the applications themselves. Agenda item 5 was the application. It was a return of the Tower House, 27 Wendham Road, Bridgewater, but that application has been withdrawn. So that means we go straight on to agenda item 6, which is the application for 19 Oxford Street, Burnham-on-Sea. And Chantal, would you like to take us through the application, please?
Thank you. Yes, this is a full application for the erection of a 70-bed care home on site of an existing 70-bed care home to be demolished. Now, this application was considered at the last committee when members resolved to defer it. The members resolved to defer it to allow further negotiation to take place in terms of design, in terms of fenestration of windows, brickwork, elevations and character features and its impact on the surrounding area. So what I will do today is not run through all of the material matters that were considered at the last committee, but I'm going to run through the design features in respect of the proposal. The applicants have very helpfully provided me with a list of design features and illustrations that demonstrate why they have come up with the design that they have, and also to demonstrate how it relates to the character of the existing buildings and the character of the area. The applicants have actually amended the design in terms of providing stone window headers to reflect the existing building's appearance. They've also provided coped roof gables and stone banding in the elevations. This slide shows the context of the site as a reminder. It's within the town centre of Burnham-on-Sea, surrounded by a number of residential properties. And as you can see, the aerial to the right indicates the existing buildings on the site and the surrounding properties. And again, the plan on the left indicates the existing footprint of the existing buildings, and the proposal is the plan on the right-hand side. Now, in terms, these slides are the slides that have been really helpfully provided by the applicants. So I'm going to just run through them so that you can see what's been shown as existing and what's being demonstrated as how the proposal incorporates some of the existing features. So in terms of windows, the existing windows include a vertical emphasis with varying transom and mullion arrangements with stone and brick header details, stone sills and varying dimensions and proportions. The proposal on the bottom of the slide includes, again, vertical emphasis in the design, contemporary arrangement of transoms and mullions to suit natural ventilation and daylight strategy. It includes cast stone header details and cast stone sills as part of a band course. The next slide indicates the roof designs. Existing designs include dual pitched roofs, red tiles, elevated gables with stone coping, stone sill details and tight eaves, meaning very little overhang of eaves. What is proposed is dual pitched roofs, red tile, elevated gable, stone coping, stone sill details, and again, tight eaves. In terms of wall and further fenestration details, existing, we have projecting stone band courses, stone coins, brickwork soldier headers, Flemish bond style brickwork with coloured mortar, ecclesiastical details to the chapel. What is proposed incorporates projecting stone bound course, brickwork soldier course, stone headers to windows and Flemish bond brickwork with coloured mortar. In terms of form and massing, the existing indicates the chapel being close up against the street with limited fenestration, dark pavement area, a jumble of building scales and styles with a low boundary wall. In terms of proposal, this incorporates formal elevation which addresses the street, building setback to create space and to provide a more residential relationship with the street, landscape corridor to be incorporated to enhance the streetscape, and a low boundary wall to be retained. In terms of the form and massing of the elevations, as you can see there at the top, the existing incorporates south elevation arranged into three main sections. Gables are prominent features, and there's relief and shadows across the elevation. What is proposed incorporates an arrangement of three sections with street elevation including prominent gable features. The gables arranged with low eaves to reduce mass and impact. The valleys are kept higher to allow for servicing. Setbacks across the elevations to create shadow and depth, and material variation to help break up the facade. The next slides show an artist's impression of a couple of the views that would be from the street scene, from Oxford Street, and that would be facing into the site itself. Given the details proposed and given the proposal as previously recommended, it is considered that the design features that have been incorporated in the scheme are acceptable, and the recommendation is to grant consent as was previously recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have two speakers on this application, and I'd first like to invite Owen Wynne to the table, please.
Hello, yes.
Oh, sorry, you're online. So,
Yes.
you can obviously hear me. So, when you're ready, we'll set the clock for 3 minutes. So you have 3 minutes to speak. When there's a minute left, I will let you know. So just let us know when you're ready to start.
Yes, I'm ready to start.
Okay, thank you very much. We're just setting the timer now.
Oh, hello everyone. My name's Owain Wynn and I'm talking on behalf of the Diocese of Bath and Wells. We own a property in the newer houses that were built, 17D. Our main concerns are to do with the loss of the historical character of the area, detrimental impact during the demolition of dust, noise and pollution, inadequate parking, due to the number of people who will be living there, working there, and obviously visitors. The overall impact of all the neighbouring houses and some of the issues with the whole development, some of the principles that the council generally have on developing. There is multiple issues at the moment with the security on the site and how the site has been managed.
Sorry, Mr. Wynn.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you. It's really breaking up from our end, so we're only picking up some of what you're saying.
I can redial. Can I redial in using my mobile because I'm at home and maybe that's the problem?
Well, we do have your written submission, so if you were happy, our officer here could read it on your behalf. Obviously, you'll be able to hear that.
Can I just make up my biggest concern is to do with if this is approved and in general.
I'm really sorry. You're breaking up even more now, so I'm going to have to stop there. But in order for the committee to sort of continue, as we have your written submission, I think I'd really prefer if it was written out and read out and everyone can hear it clearly. You're able to hear it too. But I need to check that's acceptable to you.
It is. My main concern is item 8. That's the biggest area because that's to do with how the project will be managed. Because I'm very concerned about that impact on our resident.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll read out the statement on his behalf. Number 1, loss of historic character. This application will result in total demolition of a site with clear historic and architectural significance. It includes a Victorian era building and chapel that contribute to the identity and character of Burnham-on-Sea. The council's own conservation officer objected, calling for a more sympathetic approach and noting the site's importance to our communal history. That advice has been disregarded, and with it, we risk losing irreplaceable local heritage for good. 2, detrimental impacts of demolition, dust, noise, and pollution. The demolition itself raises serious concerns. This will not be a minor operation. The buildings are extensive, old, and likely contain hazardous materials, including asbestos. Demolition will generate significant dust, airborne particles, and persistent noise. This is a densely populated residential area. Vulnerable residents, including young children and elderly neighbours, will be directly impacted by this disruption. Nearby homes, gardens, and outdoor spaces will be exposed to constant noise and poor air quality unless robust controls are enforced. Inadequate parking provisions. With just 30 spaces proposed, including only 13 staff spaces, this development will place excessive pressure on surrounding streets. Burnham Street has already faces congestion and overparking issues, and this will make things worse. The town council has rejected on these grounds, and I support their position fully. Overdevelopment and neighbour impact. The proposal is overly large and out of keeping with the character of the neighbourhood. It will sit next to modest homes and bungalows, yet proposes a 3-storey mass is visually dominant and intrusive. Despite efforts to obscure some windows, there remain concerns about privacy, overshadowing, and the loss of amenity to neighbouring properties. No valid justification for full demolition. The applicant claims the building cannot be reused. but no independent structural survey, no viability analysis, and no heritage impact assessments have been shared with the public. This is a key omission. Without evidence, demolition is not justified and fails to align with sustainable planning policies. Fails the council's own principles. Your own principles promote protecting character, reducing car use, and building with quality and community in mind. This scheme destroys local identity, increases traffic and parking stress, offers no meaningful grass infrastructure, and reflects institutional design, not community-focused architecture. Ongoing site mismanagement and security issues. Since the existing care home became unoccupied, the site has suffered from poor management and lack of adequate security. Residents have reported break-ins, trespassing, and antisocial behaviours on and around the site, inadequate fencing and security measures, leaving the building open to vandalism, ongoing noise disturbance to unsecure structures and activities on site. This history of neglect and mismanagement casts serious doubt on the applicant's ability to manage demolition and construction responsibly. If permission is granted, the council must require a clear enforceable site management plan with penalties for any further security breaches to harm local amenity. If approved, enforce strict demolition controls. Should the committee decide to grant permission despite the community's concerns, then it is absolutely vital that the demolition and construction phases are subject to the highest levels of control, enforcement, and accountability. The developer must not be allowed to operate unchecked. The following safeguards should be implemented as non-negotiable enforceable conditions. Environmental protection. A comprehensive demolition environmental management plan, DEMP, must be about 2 pages there.
It's way over the 3 minutes. I think I will have to stop it there.
Can we just finish off this?
Yes, please. Yes,
The-
please. Have we got to number 8?
Oh, yeah, this was the start of 8, but there's
Right.
still quite a lot of 8 left, so I'll finish off this.
Can we finish off 8?
Okay, I'll
8,
finish off
and
8.
then we'll have to leave it there.
Yeah. Okay, to finish off item 8. A comprehensive demolition environmental management plan must be submitted and approved prior to any demolition works. This plan must include continuous air quality monitoring for dust and particles, real-time data on air quality made available to the public, regular on-site dampening and dust suppressing equipment to minimize airborne debris, full asbestos survey and safe removal procedures with regular inspections reporting to the council, noise and vibration control. Strict noise limits should be set with acoustic barriers where the demolition is near residential properties. No work should be permitted outside the following hours, Monday to Friday, 9 AM to 5 PM. No work on Saturday and Sundays or public holidays. A vibration monitoring plan should be in place to prevent structural damage to neighbouring homes. Public communication and complaints process. A dedicated contact officer must be appointed by the developer with a publicly advertised phone number and email. A notice period of at least 2 weeks must be given to residents before any major demolition activity. A weekly update bulletin must be issued, email or post, detailing progress and any disruption expected. Monitoring and enforcement. The council must undertake. Okay.
I think got the
yeah.
gist, and I think a lot of that will be responded to under the construction environmental management plan. But Mr. Wynne, there's some issues there that to be responded to, but I will ask for that following our next speaker, which is Tom Sadler. If you could come to the table, please. Again, you have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Today you are revisiting the determination of an application which has undergone a positive pre-application process, has an officer recommendation for approval, and has no statutory consulting objections. At the previous planning committee meeting in July, it was agreed to defer the case to allow the project's architect to review the development's design, specifically the fenestration of windows, brickwork, elevation and character features, and its impact on the surrounding area. No other issues were raised. As the case officer has just presented to you, the proposed design of the development before you today has been updated very carefully with important details added in order to capture all of the comments and requests made at the previous committee. It is a design we and the council's officers are really proud of and will ensure this much needed care home will be of the highest quality that its future occupants, staff, and the local community will also be proud of. Whilst not forgetting the fact that all of the existing buildings could be demolished tomorrow, with nothing put in their place and the site left empty, this proposal has carefully assessed the key design features of the present buildings and applied them to the proposed development without appearing pastiche, to create a high-quality scheme that respects and reflects the site and its context history. Just to touch on the speaker's comments, obviously, issues of dust, noise, vibration, anything associated with the construction or demolition will be covered in the conditions that your officers have already proposed on the application. And in terms of car parking, there are issues there. The current site has 10 informal spaces attached to it, arguably less than 10 if you actually space them out in accordance with your own standards. And we're proposing 30 for a care home that is of the same size. A vast improvement that your highways officers have considered acceptable with no objection. And finally, on the point about its footprint, the footprint is actually reduced from the existing residents' properties and gives them more relief than the current building does. So yeah, overall with those comments, I think they're all covered. I hope you'll now agree that the improved design and details proposed by this development, together with its significant public benefits associated with the opportunity to provide a much needed care home for Burnham-on-Sea, built to the highest standard, results in a scheme you will support and grant planning permission in accordance with officers' clear recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Chancellor, or any of the officers, would you like to respond to any of the points made by Mr. Wing, please?
Yes, thank you. There were a number of points that, in terms of the loss of historic character, this is what we are establishing. The existing property has a deemed demolition consent, so it could be demolished tomorrow. What we're looking at is the site is not within a conservation area and it's not a listed building. And in terms of the design of the proposal, as can be seen from my report, this is considered to be acceptable and recommended approval. In terms of the dust, noise and pollution, there would be condition number 7 or condition number 12. We've got 2 conditions attached to the recommended approval. Condition 7 relates to a construction environmental management plan, and condition 12 relates to a construction management plan. So that should ensure that residential amenity is not undue disturbed. In terms of parking, as the applicant agent has stated, there would be a total of 30 car parking spaces. In terms of poor management issues of the site at present, that's not something that I'm able to make an assessment of through this process. I think that's all the points covered that I could see, but if there's anything else, thank you.
Thank you. Members, any comments, questions, proposals? Councillor Filmer.
I'll kick off because I think I kicked off last time. Yeah, really pleased that the applicant has worked with our officers to make the improvements they've made. In terms of, I'd like some clarification in terms of our construction management plan, because I think that's what we would normally deal with this through. The fact they've already got deemed permission for demolition, does our construction management plan cover that, or is there something under the demolition that has already got dealing with the dust and the problems that will be caused by demolition? Would that have been covered by that previous permission?
In terms of control over their demolition, with the deemed consent, there would be no control other than normal environmental health control factors. But with this application, if you have a look at conditions number 7 and 12, that incorporates what we are recommending.
Yeah, because I was quite happy with 7 and 12 covering all the construction stuff. It's just obviously demolition stuff is going to generate a lot of issues in itself. So I would hope that we might, obviously the applicant will be aware that they're surrounded by development on all sides, and hopefully they will do their bit to minimise the impact on the residents. I mean, in terms of the design, as I say, it's definitely improvement on what we had before. They have made a real effort to take the lead that we have. I think I would love to have seen the sort of cruciform finial on there, but I can't say no, because that's not that big, but if they've got a couple knocking around and they want to take them off the roof, I'm sure the planning authority wouldn't object. But as far as I can see, they've made an effort to really meet us halfway, and I'm quite happy with the application now as it stands. I think we've done all we can from this position.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I tend to agree with Councillor Filmer. I think they have gone quite a way to alter this and make it a bit more in keeping. I would have liked to have seen it gone further, but you know, they at least have made the effort to come up with something that was certainly better than what was in the first part. I am concerned about the knocking down period. Realise that there's already permission for that. It's a very small site. There's going to be a lot of lorries going in and out. You've got a couple of properties in there which I would hope that they could be shielded from this, which I'm sure the management plan will tell you that anyway. But yes, I think it's in this stage it's gone certainly further than what it was on the original. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm sure officers will take away the comments about the demolition process. If there are no further comments, then I'm looking for councillor Murphy.
May I just ask, perhaps me, but I see here it says both buildings also reference their ecclesiastical history with carved crosses to roof bridges and stone display recesses. I haven't seen that when they showed us the slide. Did you see it, Madam Chair? Crosses and stone recesses.
It's already been, I think reference has already been made to that, councillor Murphy.
Was it made by the gentleman who presented? Because I didn't hear that. I saw the windows have been treated. Essentially, that was what I saw, but I didn't see any crosses or stone recesses.
I think you saw what you saw, and then we need to make our decision based on what we've all seen. Is the only thing I can say to that.
That's your prerogative.
And it's yours to make comments. I don't know if the officer wants to come back at anything. I think we have done that, really.
Are you saying that the carved crosses and that the roof bridges have been stone display recesses have been installed, will be installed?
Well, if we haven't seen it, then they won't be.
So
Would you like to?
No, I think what you're picking up on is the slide where it said these are all the design features that are existing, and then below we looked at all the features that they were incorporating, and they were very similar. But in the case that you've picked up, no, I don't believe that I've seen anywhere that they've incorporated those features, the stone crosses or recesses.
So the document that we have in front of us is nonsense. I'm just asking because it's interesting to note that if you have a document that you're presenting to us, officer, which says that there will be stone, there will be carved crosses and roof bridges. I mean, you know, it's let's not sweat the small stuff in some respects, but it is an ecclesiastical building. And I just wonder.
Can I ask, wait, can you quote the paragraph that you're seeing this?
Page 44. Page 44. Item 1.3, existing buildings on site and the character review of surrounding.
That's existing.
Yeah.
Can be, I see. Oh, it's me that's having a problem with it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, but we clarified that now. Thank you.
We were just, at that time, we were just simply listing key features and fenestration, and you're right, did not include that.
Thank you. Okay, so it looks like there's no further debate. Can I ask for a proposal, please, and a seconder to make a recommendation? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was miles away. Yes, I propose that we can accept that upon the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bolt? Seconding? Okay, so we have a proposer and seconder to grant permission as per the officer recommendation. All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous. For those that are able to vote on that one. Thank you, members. That takes us, then we next need to get councillor Hendry back in the room. Okay, and we need to ask councillor Ham to leave the table, please. You can stay for the presentation and then I'll call you to the. Right.
Keep it.
We'll go for the shoot.
Mike? Mine. Let's change on. What? You're thinking.
Everyone may.
It's not true. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're all present that need to be present. Maybe, would you like to take us through the application, please?
Sure, thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. So the next application is on land to the west of Axbridge Moor Road in Axbridge for the proposed erection of a two-storey dwelling with garage and associated works. The application is being presented to committee as the officer's recommendation is contrary to the view of the town council and a ward member. And the application has been referred to, and I'm going to read a quote here, to allow full consideration of the difference in interpretation of local plan and neighbourhood plan policies between the town council and the officer recommendation. Since the publication of the report, there is just one slight update. So in the report, I quote the North 5-year housing land supply to be 4.77 years. It is now 4.17 years. So just an update on that. So this is the list of the relevant local plan policies. There is also a neighbourhood plan in Axbridge as well, and these policies are relevant. There are also some supplementary planning documents that are relevant to this scheme, and also the main planning considerations there that we are going to look at in the presentation. So the application site is to the south of the main built-up area of Axbridge. The site is currently an agricultural field with vehicular access onto Axbridge Moor Drove, which then connects to Moorland Street in the north, which is an adopted road just above where that junction is. The application follows a previous refusal for a self-build dwelling at the site. So the previous scheme was refused for one reason, and that was that by reason of its size, scale, detailing, roof forms and material finishes, that it would result in a visually dominant and incongruent addition to the detriment of the character of the area, setting of the right of way, and not be considered a complementary design. So that is the site plan of the refuse scheme. And these are now the elevation drawing. It's a bit of a lag. These are now the elevation drawings as well of the refused scheme. So as you can see, it had a variety of different roof types and materials. And again, those are the other elevation drawings. So that's the history of the scheme. And like I say, it was only refused for one reason relating to design. So we now move on to the current proposal. So it's for the erection of a detached dwelling to be served by the existing vehicular access. The proposal also includes the planting of a native species hedgerow with post and rail fencing. And the scheme also provides an integral garage and solar panels to the roof. So the scheme proposes for a part two-storey, part single-storey dwelling with no first floor windows to the north elevation. The walls are proposed to be finished with render and stone masonry, with the two-storey element finished with double Roman roof tiles and the single-storey element finished with a standing seam roof and roof tiles to the garage element of the scheme as well. We then move on to photos. So I start off with some street view photos just because you get a better, wider view of things. So the red arrow denotes the site. That sort of gate next to that small stone building is the vehicular access that's to be used. So this is looking towards the north. And then this is sort of just turning round, looking back in the other direction. So as you can see by the arrow where the site is. So these are now my photos. So this is from within the site, looking towards the east. So that stone building that was in those Google Street View images can just be seen on the left of that photo there. This is then from within the site, panning around towards the north, so the existing dwellings that are in that location. And then carrying on panning round towards the west. And then looking towards the south. Apologies for the interesting angle there. I obviously wasn't holding my phone straight. Okay, so we now move on to the main considerations of the scheme. So considering the 5-year housing land supply in North, this is currently at 4.17 years. This means therefore that the consideration of the planning balance is tilted in favour of granting planning permission unless there are adverse impacts that significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. In respect of the neighbourhood plan, this sets out that residential development that is outside of but well related to the settlement boundary will only be supported where the relevant local plan policies are met. Policy D9 of the local plan supports small-scale self-build residential schemes that are outside of but well related to the settlement boundary, providing the criteria of the policy can be met. So on this plan I'm showing, the red star is the application site and the green line is the settlement boundary. So the proposal is referred to as a self-build dwelling within the application, and the applicant is listed on the self-build register. A condition can be used to ensure that the proposal remains as a self-build dwelling. It is also worth noting, however, that for sites that are well related to Tier 2 settlements, there's no requirement to demonstrate a local connection. So the condition would be worded simply to be for a self-build dwelling. It wouldn't have that extra prescriptive element that we sometimes add. Because it's not required on this scheme. We then move on to design and visual amenity. So concerns been raised that the proposal would impact the view of the town from the south. There are protected views set out within the neighbourhood plan. However, the application site falls outside of these. Whilst there is open countryside to the south of the site, there is residential development in all other directions. And it's considered that when viewed from the south, the site would be seen in the context of the main settlement of Axbridge, as it is adjacent to the main built-up form of the town. The proposal is part 2-storey, part single-storey, and due to the size of the plot and the varying roof heights, it is considered to be of a suitable scale and massing that would not result in an over-dominant addition that would be detrimental to the character of the street scene of the surrounding area. Considering the material finishes, these are both contemporary and traditional and are considered to be complementary to the existing character of the area. A condition is proposed to be used to require the submission and approval of the materials to be used. And then considering the previous refusal, which related to visual impact, it's considered that this is now overcome due to the reduced size and scale of the proposed dwelling, along with a simplified roof form and a more limited range of material finishes. Moving on to consideration of residential amenity, in respect of future occupiers of the proposed dwelling, the proposed accommodation is compliant with national space standards, and all habitable rooms are shown to be served by adequate levels of natural light. A private external amenity space to serve the proposed dwelling is also considered to be of a size and layout that is conducive to convivial use. In respect of amenities of existing neighbouring residents, the proposal is approximately 20 metres from the nearest existing dwelling. So you can see from that plan where I've taken that measurement from. So that's 25 metres wall to wall. It's considered from the 2-storey wall, sorry, I should say, because that's the garage added onto that north elevation. It's considered that due to this distance and absence of first floor windows to the north, that the proposal would not result in an unacceptable level of overlooking, overshadowing or overdominance. It's proposed that if consent were to be granted, a condition is imposed to prevent the installation of first floor windows to the north without prior consent from the LPA. Additionally, due to the proximity of the application site to existing residences and concerns that have been raised by third parties, a condition is proposed to be used to secure the submission and approval of a construction management plan prior to commencement of development. Considering the historic environment, so the application site's within an area of high archaeological potential. Southwest Heritage have been consulted on the proposal and no objection has been raised, as it's considered that the proposal has limited or no archaeological implications. The Axbridge Conservation Area, shaded in pink on that plan, lies to the northeast. The built form of the proposal is located approximately 30 metres from the edge of the conservation area. And given this distance and the scale of the development proposed, it's not considered that the proposal would have an unacceptable impact on the protected area. So moving on to ecology, a shadow HRA had been submitted as the site is within Band B consultation zone for the North Somerset and Mendip Backed SAC special area of conservation. The shadow HRA sets out that the loss of the improved grassland to provide the proposal is not significant for horseshoe bats. For the purpose of the assessment, it was assumed that the site is used by bats for foraging and commuting purposes because there was an absence of this information within the submitted details. So they sort of assumed worst case scenario that the bats were using the site. It's been assessed that the existing hedgerows are suboptimal for bat flight lines and therefore would need to be enhanced and maintained accordingly. Additionally, there's the potential that any external lighting could disturb bats. So within this shadow HRA, the appropriate assessment concluded that planning conditions could be used to secure suitable mitigation and enhancements through a construction environmental management plan, a landscape and ecological management plan, and sensitive lighting strategy. The shadow HRA has been endorsed by SES, and Natural England also concur with the conclusion of the shadow HRA. It's therefore considered to be acceptable to adopt the shadow HRA to fulfil the responsibility under Regulation 63 of the Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulations of 2017, as amended. So considering other ecological matters, SES have recommended a number of conditions to provide and secure biodiversity enhancements. A lot of that is already covered by the conditions recommended within the shadow HRA, but they also recommend the standard water consumption for new dwellings, along with securing the biodiversity enhancements that were detailed within the submitted ecology reports. And also just to flag that this application was submitted prior to the introduction of BNG legislation, so it's not a matter for this application. Moving on to flood risk and surface water management, part of the application site lies within flood zone 2, with the remainder lying in flood zone 1. In respect of the sequential test, as the site is outside the development boundary, the search area for alternative sites is the remainder of the former Sedgemoor district. So the application has been accompanied by a flood risk assessment that has considered an extensive number of alternative sites, and it is many sites that they've considered, pages. And it concluded that there are no suitable alternatives available. Additionally, the quantum of development has been sited outside of the flood zone as much as possible. So on that plan on the right, the bottom right, you can kind of see the footprint of the proposal. The light green area is flood zone 1, which isn't shown on the mapping system. And then the sort of darker bluey green colour is flood zone 2. It can't be moved any further north because there's a need to retain the maintenance buffer to serve the water course that's along the northern boundary, which is shaded in that different blue colour. As you can see from the way where the footprint is, most of the house that is within flood zone 2 is the 2-storey element. So there is access to first floor accommodation in the event of a flood. But it's considered that the sequential test can be passed because of the alternative site search and the fact that as much of the proposed dwelling is sited outside of the flood zone as is possible. And as I just said, in respect to the exceptions test, there's a 2-storey element so the first floor will be used as refuge, and flood mitigation measures are also proposed to be incorporated into the scheme, and this can be secured by condition. The Environment Agency have been consulted on the scheme and have raised no objection. The Internal Drainage Board has also been consulted, and whilst initially required the dwelling to be resited because it was nearer to the north, following this amendment, they're now raising no objection and have recommended appropriate conditions to secure the implementation of the mitigation measures detailed within the submitted surface water and outfall plan. Moving on to highways and public rights of way, the Highways Authority have referred the proposal to standing advice. So in this respect, this requires the proposed dwelling to be served by an adequate off-road parking provision and connection to the highway network. The proposal includes the provision of at least 3 off-road parking spaces and is therefore in line with the recommendations made within the parking strategy. A condition is proposed to be used to secure the parking area and associated drainage prior to occupation. The proposed development seeks to reuse the existing vehicular access, and it's considered that this is acceptable for a single dwelling due to its width and connection onto an unadopted road. There is also a public right of way to the east and west of the site, as shown on this plan. The rights of way officer has been consulted and they've raised no objection to the application. So considering the planning balance, the north area does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the tilted balance is engaged. This means, therefore, that the consideration of this planning balance is tilted in favour of granting planning permission, unless there are adverse impacts that significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. That is the wording in the NPPF. The principle of the development is considered to comply with the relevant policies of the local plan, and there are no objections from key consultees. The previous scheme was refused for one reason, relating to size, scale and detailing, and it's considered that the amendments that have been made now overcome these previous concerns. It's also considered that any mitigation required can be secured by planning condition, and it is therefore the officer's recommendation to approve planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. We have 3 speakers on this application. I'd first like to invite Vicky Price, Axbridge Town Council, to the table, please.
If I'm not going first, I'm going to speak, I'll just be the. I was going to say that I endorse what Vicky's going to say.
Okay, all right then. Well, if you're both going to say the same thing,
I'm not, that's why that was all I was going to say. I didn't want to say the same thing.
You're going to say, yeah?
Well, this is the order I've got before me. So yeah, if you, okay, Vicky. Okay, you have 3 minutes, and then just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the time.
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, I'm Vicky Bryce, Town Clerk for Axbridge Town Council. I'm speaking on behalf of Axbridge Town Council to object to this application. The application is for an extremely large property on an agricultural field outside of the settlement boundary. The detailed objections are set out in the report, but the key points are as follows. Policy. The proposed development is contrary to Axbridge Neighbourhood Plan and Sedgemoor District Local Plan. It is not included in the neighbourhood plan as a site for development and was not identified in the call for sites. Axbridge has already met the requirements for new homes identified in these plans. It is also contrary to the neighbourhood plan given the scale and character of the proposed development and the impact on the natural environment, so contrary to policy H and NE1. The site is designated as a floodplain, flood zones 1 and 2. Impact on area and neighbours. The proposed dwelling, even with the amendments, is still of a significant size in comparison to the surrounding dwellings. This one property would run behind approximately 4 or 5 dwellings on the south side of Bailiffs Close. The scale of the proposed development is not appropriate and not in keeping with the surrounding area, having a detrimental impact on the area, neighbours and landscape. Traffic generation and road safety. The local school is in Moorland Street and the site is at the end of this road, which is narrow. Moorland Street already suffers from traffic congestion, parking issues and road safety. The proposed development will exacerbate the situation. Environment. The development will not enhance the natural environment, landscape, biodiversity and habitats, and will impact on wildlife, especially bats. It is within Zone B of the Bat Consultation Zone associated with the North Somerset and Mendip Special Area of Conservation. Summary. The initial application was refused by Somerset Council due to the design and appearance of the dwelling. This included the size and scale of the proposed dwelling, which would be visually dominant and to the detriment of the character of the area, the setting of the rights of way, and not of a complementary design. Axbridge Town Council objects on the grounds given and considers that the proposed dwelling, by reason of its size and scale, remains detrimental to the character of the area. There is no reason to build outside the planning line. The council respectfully requests that the application should be refused. Thank you for your time.
You. We have another speaker, so I think most of, if not all of the points were raised in the presentation, but if there's any points to pick up after, no, okay, thank you. I'd like to invite our next speaker, which is Timothy Chard, please. You have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready and we'll start the timer.
Yes, I'm ready. Good afternoon. My name is Tim Chard and I am the applicant. Dating back beyond 1908, 4 generations of our family has lived in Axbridge, with my wife and myself returning in 2019. Our wish is to build an attractive, low-energy, sustainably constructed dwelling that affords us flexible living accommodation, all within walking distance of the town centre. This application achieves those aims and accords with local and national planning policies, all of which support proposals for self-built housing on sites which are well related to the settlement boundary, such as this. 3 other schemes in Axbridge have been granted permission on this basis, including self-built dwelling approved on land north of Portmead Drove in November 2021, which is approximately 60 metres away from this site. In 2023, we submitted a planning application for a self-built dwelling, which was refused for a single reason, relating only to the appearance of the new house. In agreement with the planning officer, we made the house smaller and simplified its form. The existing site is surrounded on 3 sides by modern housing development. The proposed 1.5-storey house would appear not isolated in the landscape and would instead form a logical, small-scale extension to the town. With regards to the impact on neighbours, the proposed house is mostly single-storey. The overall elevation-to-elevation distance between the only 2-storey element and the neighbours in Davis Close is nearly 30 metres, or 100 feet, sufficient distance not to cause overcrowding. There are also no first-floor windows on the north face of the building. In summary, the planning officer's recommended is that the application is approved. The report clearly explained that the revised design of the house has been overcome, a single reason for refusing planning permission in 2023. We draw your attention to the positive acceptance from the Environmental Agency, Local Drainage Board, Somerset Ecology and Natural England. We are also aware that there is a shortfall in the supply of housing in the former Sedgemoor area. So it is a good opportunity to construct a well-designed new home on a site which is well related to Axbridge. We very much hope that you can support this application for all these reasons and will grant planning permission with the officer's recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Your time.
Thank you.
Members. Councillor Ferguson.
This takes more the form of a question than a point of contention, and I could be talking nonsense. Did you mention part of the reason the site, you're proposing a site on that lip between the 2 flood zones is due to the applicant having looked at many, many other sites? If so, what is the standard of that is and how many sort of other sites would one have to look at?
Yeah, so in terms of the sequential test, for sites that are in the countryside, which is what it's classed as, the alternative site search area is the rest of the central district, unless a specific locational requirement can be demonstrated. There's no hard and fast rules about how many sites to look at. Obviously, it will depend on what's proposed, so it would have to be a site that's suitable for the scale of development as well as availability, amongst other things. So, you know, there was a lot of alternatives shown. And also not just that, they have moved as much of the house outside of the flood zone as well, and that comes into play as well in terms of the sequential test. So that's why we consider that it's passed in this instance.
Can I ask, again, almost
Yeah.
out of curiosity, in the sequential test, does the site, is there any demands on the building itself having to change to fit other sites, or does the building itself stay the same? And it's a question of whether the other site fits the building. Is there any pressure you can put on the original design to fit what might be a reasonable site elsewhere? Or does it sit as its own piece of logic and policy?
Yeah, I
You take
don't think you can insist that the design, it's not just about the design of the house that comes into account in terms of the sequential test. It's lots of different factors, Yeah.
That's that was all I was asking.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
And then councillor Hendry and then councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Given this was reported some years ago, and it was trying to figure out one reason only. Given that reason, it's now been pretty well addressed. No drama. Statutory consultees, as always, with these things, is something they go by, and they all seem to be on board. So, quite frankly, I'm not quite sure where you can go with this to turn it down. I really can't see a reason for turning this down. But right at this moment in time, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to some extent, I think obviously there was a single reason last time, which was the scale and the design. That's been addressed. So the other issues, it's difficult to bring them in now because they weren't material reasons why it was turned down before. The other thing was I just wondered if we could get some clarification just for us as members, but also for members of the public. Flood zone 1 is the least likely to flood. Flood zone 2 is the next. Flood zone 3, which most of us in the old former Sedgemoor area are in, is the bit that's the floodplain. That generally we're trying to say there's somewhere you're looking for somewhere comparative. So we're comparing some things on flood zone 1 and 2. The vast majority of the old Sedgemoor area is flood zone 3, and then we get into the whole thing of 3A and 3B, and where this committee has gone around in circles on those. But generally, 1 and 2 are the areas that are less likely to flood. I noticed 3 is not very far away, but they have kept it out of 3, and that's where we're normally looking for flood zone issues. If we're in 3, 1 and 2 are the preferable areas generally. So I think we will be struggling to try and make a case that on flood reasons that this would be an issue. Highways haven't given us anywhere to go because they've said there's not a problem. The footpaths aren't affected directly by the building. They go either side of it. I can't, as has just been said, I can't see any reasons that we've got as with planning period to turn this one down.
Councillor Wells.
Could it possible to see either the plan or the photo of the properties on the north, east and west of this further out of Axbridge than apart from the south side, I think, which is not the view to the country. Could you see that?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So this is facing the west. I'll show you on the plan as well, which might help picture things. So this is then facing towards the north from within the site, and then this is towards the east. So that there's also a property there, which is the east. So that you're stood facing south. But sorry, I'm making it sound more complicated than it needs to be. So those are the terrace of properties that are at the north of the site as well. So I wonder if the site plan. So do you see the houses there? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it appears as though this is generational ribbon development almost out of Axminster, these buildings on either side of this site. Would you say that's the case?
I would say that the proposal isn't in a particularly isolated location. You know, there is a residential development which is further away from the boundary than this one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hendry.
Thank you. Sure, for the second time. Given the past history of this and where we stand today, any issues which are very minimal anyway have been addressed and what I just heard just now, see the presentation again. I have no problem at all to go with the opposite recommendation, so we do that and we're on permission.
Thank you. Louis, during your presentation, you did mention about maybe adding a condition about windows on the north.
It's already in the
It's
list.
there,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's already- no,
I was
don't worry.
looking for it, but I couldn't find it.
I will just double check, but I'm fairly sure it's there. Yeah, condition 7 on the report.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. After listening to all the comments, I'm happy to second councillor Hendry's position. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a proposer and a seconder to agree the officer's recommendation to grant permission. All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous, I believe. Yes. Okay. Thank you, members. I'll just get councillor Sam back into the room.
Okay.
Okay, so we're now on agenda item 8, which is the last application of the afternoon, and this is the application for the land behind 115 Brent Street, Brent Knoll. I think, Liam, are you taking us through this one?
I am, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So this application relates to a detached property located to the rear or south of 115 Brent Street in Brent Knoll. The site is located within the development boundaries of the village and has been subject to planning permission in the past. These are the key considerations set out in the report. Basically, just briefly go through these. So the site itself is located south of 115 Brent Street. In terms of planning history, this site was subject to 2 planning permissions in the past, both for detached dwellings, both of a similar appearance and scale to that proposed now. But we'll get onto that. The site is also adjacent to a number of plots which have also been granted planning permission, notably to the backs of 111 and 113 Brent Street. In total, there have been 3 permissions granted on land south of these properties as well, with access coming off of Brent Street, which is consistent with the proposal we have today. So this is the existing site plan here. Since the previous permissions were granted, the site has been sold. The property to 115 has been sold to the front of the site, and the plot here is still within the ownership of the applicant, as was previously granted consent in the past. So what was the former garden area of 115 is now the application site, and the proposal is shown on the right hand side here, which has a detached 1.5 story dwelling. So it has accommodation within the roof with a projecting gable to the rear elevation here. Access will come from Brent Street, which is along the existing access route from the highway to the north. These are the proposed floor plans. So in terms of the differences between the previous permissions, this one does include an extra bedroom within the roof of the property. But by and large, the L-shaped footprint and the appearance are all fairly similar to that which was previously proposed and approved. And this is the design shown. So this is the north elevation. As you can see, there are a number of roof lights within the roof, which will provide light to the first floor bedrooms. And there's a projecting gable at the rear elevation. And again, this is all fairly consistent with the previously approved schemes, which were granted in 2017 and 2020, but neither of which were implemented. There will be use of brickwork and vertical timber cladding, all of which, again, are fairly consistent. This is a site section, just showing the distance that we'll have between the proposed dwelling here and the existing dwelling to the front of the site, with Brent Street located here. So the access will come along the side between 115 and 117 to the rear of the site as it is at present. And this will provide the area for the garden and parking area, which will be located to the south of the property and will provide parking and turning for the proposed dwelling. These are some 3D images of the proposed dwelling. So you've got the access on the left-hand side here, with the patio area and garden to the south. This is a view taken from Brockley House, 115 Brent Street, which shows the existing landscaping which should be retained, providing a screen there. There will be a distance of approximately 30 metres between the proposed dwelling and the rear elevation of the existing dwelling to the north, which is considered to be acceptable in terms of overlooking and will maintain the privacy and amenity of both properties should construction be approved. This is further 3D images. These are taken from the side from Elm Cottage, which is to the east of the site, looking back towards the south. And this is a view taken from 117 between the shared access road or path going in between the properties and leading to the rear of the site, which is where this property will be erected. I've alluded to a number of times that there's been previous planning history for the site, and within the responses we received, a couple of comments were made about the overdevelopment of the site. I just thought I'd put these slides up in comparison, just to show you the consistency between the existing application we have before us here and that which was permitted previously. Now, there is a slight change in the size of the property, which has resulted in the width of the property becoming 1 metre wider, and the projecting gable at the rear here being 2.4 metres further back into the site. However, you will see that there is it's fairly consistent with what was previously proposed, and it still provides a garden space and parking and turning area which will be appropriate in scale for the use of the property and the number of residents that will be expected to occupy the property. During the course of this application, due to concerns raised by the Internal Drainage Board, the previously permitted and proposed carport has been removed from this scheme, and it's now an open space for parking and turning at the rear of the site. But it's not considered this would have an impact on the visual amenity of the area. Again, this is a side-by-side comparison between the proposed and the permitted schemes that we had in the past. So this is taken from the most recent scheme, which was in 2020. And as you can see, there is a greater depth to the rear of the property with the gable projection at the back. But again, it's considered that this impact will be minimal on the surrounding area. And just one more comparison shot between the elevations. So we have the proposed elevation on the left and those that were permitted on the right. And as you can see, the appearance of the building will be fairly consistent in terms of what's gone before. So these are some images taken from Google Street View, most recent update in 2025. But this is the access that will lead back towards the rear of this property, which is 115, and lead to the site, which will give access to the proposed property and its parking area. This is a view taken from the site looking towards the north. You can see the access on the left-hand side there. And again, this is taken just inside the access gate that you can see from the street shot, but going back towards the site there, which will be on the left-hand side behind this property. Some further images taken of the site, but as you can see, there won't be significant impact on the visual amenity of the village or the street scene, given that it will be in a background location off the main high street and is broadly consistent with the pattern of development that's recently been permitted along Brent Street and the rear of those properties that existed along there. So in terms of the planning balance, it's considered the principal development is established through the permissions that were granted in 2017 and 2020. While there is a slight increase in the size of this particular scheme in comparison with those that have gone before, it's not considered this will result in overdevelopment of the site or a visual impact on the surrounding area or the amenity of the village itself. The position of the dwelling is fairly consistent with that which has gone before it as well. So the distances between the existing properties in Brent Street will enable privacy, visual domination, overshadowing to be at an acceptable level. The site itself is in the flood zone. With regards to the sequential test, this is deemed to be passed as it is within the development boundaries, and the Environment Agency have no objection to the scheme following the submission of further information in relation to flood risk. The recommendation is to grant consent subject to a Section 106 agreement being drafted and completed in relation to the provision of off-site biodiversity net gain, as the submitted information deemed that on-site provision would not be achievable within the scheme as submitted. So the recommendation is granted. The recommendation is to grant consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. We have two speakers on this application, and I'd first like to call Councillor Woodward of Brent Knoll Parish Council, please.
Hi, I'm on the call. I'm on the call.
I'm so sorry. I was expecting you to be in the room. I'm sorry.
No,
Okay,
that's
well,
okay.
we
I'm
can
on the
hear
call
you.
instead. I
We
can hear you,
hear
yes.
you. Lovely. So you will have 3 minutes. We've
Okay.
just set the timers, so just let us know when you're ready to start.
I'm
and,
ready to
we'll go.
start. I'm ready to start.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the Parish Council of Brent Knoll today to formally object to the proposed development on the lands behind 115 Brent Street on the following grounds. The first one is overdevelopment of the area. We've had a number of properties in the area have had their properties built behind, and ultimately the cumulative impact of these developments is placing undue pressure on the area around this. So we're talking about 115. There's been significant development. I think it's 111 or 112, so it's just a few doors down, which has been exacerbating.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? We did lose you for.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
A few seconds.
Okay, I will try and speak slower and clearer and hope it's just not my line.
I don't want us to miss anything that you've said. I'm inclined to say, would you mind starting from the beginning again, please? And hopefully we'll get through it this time. All right,
absolutely not. That's fine. So I will put my comments in the chat as well, because I did write them down just in case. So
okay, thank you.
So I am objecting on behalf of Brent Knoll Parish Council. The main reasons being the overdevelopment of the area. We've had a number of applications in the vicinity where we have, as a council, the Somerset Council, have approved those, and that's led to quite a lot of pressure in the area on overdevelopment. There's also some concerns about highway safety. We saw an image earlier of the access that would be for the property. It's not particularly wide, and it is nestled between two properties. And as someone who actually lives on Brent Street, it's quite tricky to get in and out onto Brent Street, especially as it's quite busy that end, especially near the school. So we have concerns over highway safety issues. As mentioned, it does depart from the original proposal. It is, in our opinion, a lot larger than the original proposal, even though it has lost the carport. And we objected to the original proposal. So the fact that this is even bigger, we continue with our objections. As mentioned, there is also some concern from the wider community, from the residents of 115 and 117. And they obviously have had their statements sent through to you. Should this be approved, they do have some caveats which I'd just like to read out, which is if this planning is approved, they would like construction activity to be limited Monday to Friday between 8 and 4. And also that there are some tree preservations and additional screening put up. The images we saw, the 3D images, are fantastic when we're in summer and there's lots of leaves on the trees. But if you imagine that image with no leaves on the trees, as it will be through autumn, winter and early spring, it is actually quite visible, the property. So in summary, what we think, this application fails to respect the principles of the development for highway safety and proportionality, and I urge the committee to reject this proposal on behalf of Somerset Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We heard you loud and clear for that one.
Perfect, thank you.
For persevering. We have one more speaker, and that is Des Tucker, who's the applicant, please. Yeah, you have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start, and we'll set the timer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. As the planning officer pointed out, I would like to say that this is pretty much a duplicate of 2 previously approved applications for this very same garden plot. Unfortunately, we were unable to progress them because we were not able to agree access with the adjacent lane, and both approvals subsequently lapsed. Since then, we've managed to purchase the adjoining lane, and we are now in a position to resubmit with the new application you see before you. With the purchase of the lane, the plot is now larger by some 200 square metres, and we felt a 4-bedroom house would now be possible rather than the 3-bedroom previously approved. But whilst the building is now slightly larger, Because of the enlarged plot, we've been able to move it further to the south, more away from the neighbouring properties. The building is to be sited 30 metres from its nearest neighbour at 115 and 36 metres from 117 and 113. It will be screened by the existing mature trees, fencing and new planting. The nearest road is some 60 metres away and the nearest public footpaths are 100 and 200 metres away across the field. The basic design is to remain as before, a low-rise 1.5-storey building with a roof height of 1.5 to 2 metres below the neighbouring properties. The now larger plot is over 1,000 square metres and the building has a footprint of only 111 square metres. I cannot see how this can be viewed as crammed in or overdeveloped. Considerable effort has been taken with the design and the siting of the dwelling to ensure that it is in keeping with the size of the plot, the character of the village, and does not impinge on the neighbours. If the design and access statement is read in detail, it can be seen that these issues have been fundamental to the design. No first floor windows overlook any neighbours. Car parking and entrance into the building is to be from the south via the rear, away from the existing properties. Access is to be by the existing 4-metre wide lane, which has an existing drop curb, which was once the rear entrance to 113, but now will serve this property only. It complies with all the highway regulations and emergency vehicle access. There is clear visibility for over 100 metres in both directions, with the nearest road junction over 150 metres away, and the Highways Authority have made no objections. The issues of ecology and global warming have been taken on board with biodiversity and flood plans accepted by the relevant authorities. And although I appreciate that people may have concerns, taking all this into consideration, and with particular reference to the previous developments have been permitted within the village, I don't believe that a single dwelling of this nature, tucked away as it is, could be considered likely to impinge in any way on the neighbouring properties or the village in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Liam, would you like to respond at all? I mean, highways haven't objected, have they? But would you like to make some comments? Comments were made about the construction, should it be approved, and the trees on the site.
I think, yeah, the landscaping as shown on the submitted plan indicates there will be sufficient planting around the site. And yes, while during the winter, these obviously leaves will come down and it will be possibly more visible. When you take a look at the street scene, I mean, it's not going to be a highly visible structure within this streetscape. And even if it was, I think the design itself is of a character and materials that would be appropriate. I don't think it would have a detrimental impact based on its scale and design. And yeah, in terms of the distance as well, even without that landscaping buffer, which is obviously still there at the moment, the impact on the neighbouring property to the north, I don't think would be significant enough to warrant refusal based on overlooking, given that it will be 30 metres away. So in that respect, I think that's covered by the design and layout that's been submitted. I mean, in terms of construction, it's one dwelling. The applicants obviously indicated that they bought the access to the lane. They have ownership over that now. Based on the scale of the development for one dwelling, it's not considered there would be a significant impact for a prolonged period, which would be detrimental to residential amenity. So significant, again, would warrant refusal. Whether members feel strongly enough about that to add a condition, that could be an option, but we feel that as officers, based on the scale of it, it wouldn't be necessary in this instance. But I think all the other points covered by the Parish Council were fairly consistent with their response during the course of the application, have been covered in the report as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Members, Councillor Hendry, and then Councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. A few things to say here, and it's all positive, nothing negative whatsoever. Given the planning history, like as before, it's it would be very difficult to get something to refuse this on. The timber cladding is very sympathetic with Brentnall, I suppose, or the surrounding houses, surrounding area, which I think is a very good addition. The size of the house, albeit slightly larger than the previous one has been asked for, is not enough to actually turn this down, given the location of the bits that stand in other houses. There is a condition that would be worked if it's not already there. That's the very, very large tree in the corner plot, which could be retained as a condition because it's so private. The house is behind, or whichever way you look at it. I have absolutely no problem with this whatsoever. The entrance and exit you just got on the screen now, I just standing outside there having a look at it yesterday. It wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference, absolutely nothing on the highways for cars to come and go from there, because there's a house out of the side, there's a shop on the other side of the road, there's properties across the road. Makes not a jot of difference, it can only be one vehicle at each vehicle movement. So no problem with that whatsoever. I'm totally in favour of this, but I would, if it was passed today, which I think it should be, as a condition of a consideration of the large tree in the corner to be retained. But for now, for this moment, thank you.
Thank you. Liam, would you like to respond about the tree?
I mean, we have a broad landscaping scheme here on the screen in front of you now. Oh, if I get the larger one, I'm sorry. There we go. Which shows the existing and proposed trees that would be retained. I mean, we could impose a landscaping condition that would firm up the retention of those. I think we'd be a bit reluctant to put a retention condition on the tree as such, because that would effectively be a TPO. And I don't think it would meet the criteria for a TPO in terms of its importance to the local vernacular or whatever that criteria is. So we might be going down an unreasonable route in terms of requiring it to be retained. But if members felt strongly about the landscaping and having it retained to establish itself, then certainly that could be an option. But again, I think based on the plans that we have in front of us, there does seem to be an indication that there would be sufficient enough landscaping and trees to assimilate the development into the site and you know, maintain the character of the area.
Thank you. Do you wish to come back and then Councillor Filmer and then Councillor Martin?
Okay, one very quick thing. I wish to withdraw my statement about the tree then, because now you've explained it, how you've explained it. My asking for a condition that is not relevant, so I'll withdraw that.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Rule there, because I thought we were just talking about the option could do it, and that would give it some establishment in terms of the landscaping, but.
Well, a landscaping condition would be imposed where we were looking to enhance the landscaping planting on the site, which would retain it for a period of 5 years to establish itself. But there wouldn't be any ongoing retention of the tree indefinitely, because effectively that would mean it would be a TPO, and any work to that tree would be required to fundamentally come to the council. And I'm not sure that this would qualify as a tree of that significance.
Yeah, just as my colleague next to me also, I think in terms of a TPO, I think we'd be looking at, it has an impact between the two dwellings. The question is, does it have an impact from the highway and from the footpaths? And I'm not sure we can say from a public position of being it's between two houses, it's not going to qualify for a TPO. So I understand that. Comments to be made, I mean, I can understand where the parish council come from because they're concerned about the increase of the size, but as the applicant has explained, the plot has actually got bigger in terms of the land that they bought adjacent to it, so that does somewhat offset that. The access, again, knowing Brent Street, it's not great coming up on Brent Street, but there was an existing planning permission there for a dwelling anyway, so that's not changing. So I don't think we've got grounds to come back on the highways whilst it might be a concern. I would like to just potentially going for a permission, yes, but we talked about construction management plan. Bearing in mind the proximity of those two dwellings to the access which is going to be going through there for construction, I just wonder whether, bearing in mind the last application was again a single dwelling, we did have a construction management plan on that, and if we can have something that particularly just looks at the hours of operation. I don't think the applicant is going to want to work outside those hours anyway, but it would just be useful to have that reassurance to the neighbours that during construction it's going to be something I'll have to live with. In terms of the big beech tree, again, I agree we can't TPO it, and to some extent one would hope that the fact it's between the two dwellings, actually it's of much benefit to the new dwelling as it is the existing dwelling, so I don't think they'd want to lose it anyway. But as I say, if we could potentially look at a construction management condition just to say that we've got that covered and that it does give that reassurance, would be good.
Thank you.
Sorry, first check. I mean, in terms of construction, would we be looking to limit construction hours rather than, because obviously with construction management plans you get, you know, bells and whistles in terms of direction of traffic and everything like that. But I think we know where that sort of stuff is coming from, and given the scale of it, it might be worth just conditioning the working hours rather than the whole construction. Okay.
Be very happy to propose permissions subject to hours that the use as, I think it was mentioned about 8 till 4, whether that or 8 till 5, 9 till 5, I don't know what your hours officers recommend.
Yeah, can I suggest we do our usual standard hours rather than 8 till 4? But there is a standard condition. I must admit, as a newbie, I don't know exactly what it is here, but I've worked at numerous authorities and they're very standard, pretty much.
Happy to go with the standard.
Thank you. Now, did you want to come back, or was the tree we passed now?
I think the matter had passed.
That's all right. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Filmer actually covered the questions that I was going to ask, mostly regarding that beach and the working hours. But I think, we can all hear each other. We can all hear the conversation in the room. So I think we can all be fairly confident that we understand about the working hours as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
I think makes in Councillor Fulmer choose a proposal. I thought you guys, yes, yeah, definitely. Okay.
So, just to confirm, Councillor Filmer.
It was grant permission subject to the additional
Yes.
hours of operation.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to send it, sorry.
Thank you.
Chair, sorry, through you. Yes, so our standard operation hours are Monday to Friday, 8 till 6, Saturday, 8 till 1, and no working on Sundays or bank holidays, or no noisy work permitted on those days. So they might want to do, they can do some painting or something inside, but nothing but some drills. That's the standard condition we apply. Thank you. And thank you to my colleague Louise.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Hendry, you're seconding. So I have a proposer and a seconder to grant permission as per the officer's recommendation, subject to the condition around hours of working. As discussed, all in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous again. Thank you, members. So that's the end of the applications, and we just now go to the appeal reports.
Thank you, Chair. That's me. So we have 3 decisions, all of which the appeals were dismissed, which is great news. I've always liked to be able to report positively. First one I'll go to is 59A Broadway. So this was an application for the prior approval for demolition of buildings and construction of one dwelling house. This is an interesting one because it was a proposal under Class ZA, which is conversion from employment use to residential. And the inspector actually concluded that the requirements of Class ZA for prior approvals were met, but they took on board the fact that there is a statutory duty under the other legislation relating to protected species. So they basically said that they weren't convinced that the reports that have been provided relating to protected species in terms of bats were in time. So the service had been done some time ago, and applying the precautionary principle, the inspector said, well, can't be satisfied that the situation hasn't changed since the reports were over 2 years old, and so refused to grant prior approval on that basis. So it's interesting. We hadn't actually, as officers, we hadn't actually refused on that basis, but the inspector, and this shows, this is a good example of showing that actually when an inspector considers a planning appeal, they're not duty bound to just go consider what the officers have put forward or what the council has put forward. They assess the application afresh and then note their duty under the Habitats Regs and refuse that one. So interesting one from my perspective. The next one, sorry, I've got here is Little Bankland Farm. It's another prior approval application. This one was a prior approval under Part Q, which Class Q, sorry, which relates to agricultural buildings being converted to residential. I'm sure you're familiar with those. The only question here was whether or not the proposals would meet the requirements to be converted under Class Q. The inspector looked at it, and I was quite reassured again by this one, because I have seen some, what I would say, questionable decisions nationwide on conversion of agricultural buildings. But the inspector took the view that this building was a real hodgepodge, I think was their wording, of patchwork, maybe was their wording, of different materials, etc. And they felt that the works to convert the building to residential were significant in that regard, and wasn't just about providing supporting walls, etc. And basically saying that due to the poor state of each elevation, the gaps in the existing walls, the building is effectively open to the elements on all sides to some extent, and substantial rebuilding works in each elevation would be necessary. And it's not limited remedial work. And on that basis, they felt that it wasn't permitted development and it couldn't be converted to residential purposes under Part Q, Class Q, sorry. And then the final one of the existing appeals, again, an appeal that was dismissed. Should mention, it's not mentioned in the report, but just to add, there was a costs decision on this one again. The cost decision was thrown out, I'm pleased to say, but it should have technically been reported in the agenda. But this is an application for stationing of 2 shepherd's huts to provide holiday accommodation. The question is whether or not there's a suitable location having regard to the character and appearance of the area, and the question around the proposed access road to serve the holiday lets, and impact on wildlife corridor and habitats. Conversely to the last inspector, or the one before last, the inspector didn't feel that there would be a material impact on habitats, but they did note that the buildings themselves, the shepherd's huts, would be sited in a prominent location away from existing buildings and would thereby be rather visible, and that the access would in itself, new access would exacerbate that visual impact on the character and appearance of the area. And so they dismissed the appeal on character and appearance grounds, both in terms of the access and the new shepherd's huts. And as I say, the request for costs was dismissed as well. We do have 3 new appeals. 2 of them I'm not fully aware of. One of them is in Bridgewater and Thornton Road. I am aware of that one. It was a proposed conversion to a 9-bed HMO, Hinkley Homes, and whilst we have some sympathy for the need to provide temporary accommodation, this application was for conversion of a semi-detached property in between 2 other properties, where they would basically be taking up nearly 3/4 of the garden at back, with 9 parking spaces, which you wouldn't expect to be next door to domestic properties, even if one or other may be an HMO in itself. And we felt it was a step too far in terms of HMO territory. But I'm confident, or as confident as I can be, but you never know with appeals. But I'm confident that we made the right call, and I would hope an inspector would back us up. I think that's it, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? Councillor Filmer.
Not specifically to the appeal, was something that was raised in the meeting.
Yes.
It was just that it was reported to us that our 5-year land supply had now dropped to 4.17, 4.77. How have we lost half a year so quickly?
Can I speak with Kate, our planning policy manager, and I'll provide you with a response. I
do the whole committee.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll respond, Chair, through to all of the committee members. I'm not sure whether it was just a miscalculation originally or what, so I wouldn't like to, to second guess that. Thank you.
Yeah, I know we discussed that before. I think mention was made of a different calculation or something, but rather than speculate.
Yeah, I mean,
Reply would be really helpful, thank you.
it could be to do with the recent call for sites where developers identify whether or not, and that as part of that process, from my previous authority, part of that process is to write to developers and see where they are with sites and to get a new timescale from when they're likely to deliver things. So maybe something to do with that, but again, probably not right to speculate at this stage. And I will take that way and respond. Thank you.
Thank you, that'd be great. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. So I'd just like to thank everybody for their contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.